Welcome to the Scoop World Order Massive Movement Edition. There is a lot of stuff churning right now. Players are entering the portal like Hero Canoe. Some guys are coming back like Carnell Tate. Jim Knowles is a big question mark. We're going to break all that down. Take your questions. As always, we appreciate you guys that are a huge part of the show. The championship celebration is at noon tomorrow in the Horseshoe. Looks like it'll be a great time, a great show. If you guys are going to that, let me know in the comments. But yeah, this will be a huge one. Took the night off last night, so we got a lot to talk about. Carnell is back, which is something that I thought would happen. I think that there's always these kind of negotiating and hedging back and forth, transfer portal. What's the number out there, and what is the real number Ohio State can afford to keep some of these kids? So Carnell being back is huge, obviously. Davison coming back is huge. We're going to see if there's any other movement, and some guys have also found new homes. So we're going to break all that down. Again, if you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Appreciate all that you guys do on the show. And also, this has been a monster month for us. So I'm going to bring in Nevada. This has been Movement City. Zen Mikulski to Indiana. George goes to Kansas State. George Fitzpatrick, excuse me. There's a lot of these guys that are kind of finding new homes for significant, money, and not to mention they get to go be named a starter instantly. And it's a different world, the world of depth. Depth is officially an illusion. I've been saying it for a while. Where Hero Canoe is a guy that jumped in that was a little surprising because he was a guy that I penciled in as a starter next year, but maybe he wants to find something better, I guess. I don't know. And we still have Edric Houston and Caden McDonald in the middle, so I'm not specifically worried about it. But it's a new world, man. Kids can leave whatever they want, and some kids are going to go chase the bag. But what are your thoughts on some of the portal movement that we've seen so far?
Well, here's my thoughts. I'll kind of run them down in terms of thoughts. From I don't know if this is most important, the least important, but it'll be in some sort of order like that. Getting Carnell back, very excited about that. That one made sense on so many levels. You're there. You're 1 year away from the bag with the NFL. JJ's there to draw the double coverage. You don't have to have the pressure of being the number one. Ohio State's going to give you a competitive NIL offer. You've got Brian Hartline. All those reasons why it made sense for Carnell coming back. And now, next year, your wide receiver core is JJ Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis are your top three. I think we're in pretty good shape there. So that was a good one. That was a good one. Would it have been the end of days if we didn't get Carnell Tate? Not to me, but it's nice to have. Very excited about it. Big props to OSU NIL for stepping up, the foundation stepping up on that one, because that was one where Oregon was tampering like an MFer, and Ohio State had to respond, and their guys did. Those guys deserve all the credit. The NIL group at Ohio State, first rate, worked really, really hard, and the donors stepped up, and we kept Carnell Tate. So big acquisition. We got the word that Davison's coming back. He's contemplating actually a move to safety. I'm not sure he's going to do it, but he's talking about it. Whether he would move to safety, whether he's better suited, whether he's better suited as an NFL safety or corner. Not sure what he's going to do with that, but word is that he's coming back, which to me was underrated. Really, really big news, because I know he had a lot of untimely holding penalties, pass interference. David Grabanusen, I get it, but having a guy like that back for next year's defense, I think, is huge, and so was very excited to hear about him going. Hero Canoe, to me, just a guy. Just a guy, not great kid, nice guy. I wish him well, but just a guy. George, just a guy. Nice kid, great family, but just a guy. Zen, same thing. So I really think on the whole, when you look at, this is not even talking about Max, don't call me Travis Clare, Ethan, I can't pronounce your last name, from tight end, or the tackle from Rice, Philip Daniel. That's not even counting those. On the whole, this has been a very, very plus portal season for Ohio State, and with very few notable minuses. So I think that so far, fingers crossed, I think we're, really, really doing well so far in portal season number one. And I think portal season number two will be the killing fields for Ohio State because I mean, we are the defending national champion. We're going to have money to spend. Very, very attractive place to go. And so, very, very optimistic that we're going to grab a couple of gems in the second portal season as well. Now, from a coaching standpoint, let me just tell you what I know, and I'll tell you what I know, and then what I think. Knowles has told players that he's returning. He's told players that he's returning. Now, could that change? Could things fall apart? Yeah, absolutely. And the issue, I mean, Ohio State has made him an offer to be the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football. The issue seems to be, and let's just call it what it is, him and Larry Johnson are not in alignment. They're just not. And there's been friction on there. That's been something that we've been talking about since the Oregon game. I'm not sure if I can really get to the source of the friction to really understand, because it's kind of a he said, she said type of thing. But as you and I have talked about, I mean, how bad can it really be when you're the number one defense in the country on a historically good Ohio State team that wins the national championship? I mean, how bad does it really have to be? But I really believe that's the source of any of the Knowles is leaving. Knowles is going to Oklahoma. Knowles is going to Penn State. Knowles, I mean, I can't keep track of all the rumors on that, but I, you know, I mean, I don't know what he's going to do. But if you said gun to my head right now at 7:31 p.m. Saturday night, what do you think, Nevada? I mean, I'm betting on him staying. I just think money and Caleb Downs, and I mean, how bad could it really have been with Larry to not be able to work through something like that? That just doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense to me. Nor does going to work for James Franklin and Penn State. That doesn't make sense to me. The Venables Oklahoma thing doesn't make sense to me. The only thing that made any sense to me in this whole thing was somebody posted a picture of Knowles' fiance, and Knowles did good. I mean, people say Knowles can't recruit. Man, they're completely wrong. I mean, Knowles is clearly a heck of a recruiter when he puts his mind to it, because she was smoking. And good on Jim. Good on Jim that he was able to pull like that. And now that he's got more money, Jim, I can just tell you get better looking as you make more money. That is an inescapable truth. That is, I'm living example of that. But you get much better looking as you make more money. I mean, Burt Carton right now, you're like a male model, man. You're like Fabio meets Ricky Martin meets Tom Brady all here at once there now with your fabulous success on this website.
Oh my God.
I mean, you are so handsome and getting more handsome every day, and thinner and handsome. So I don't think that Knowles is leaving, but I could get a text in 5 minutes that says Knowles just took the job. So I don't know. We always we tell people exactly what's going on. I don't know, but he's told people he's trying to, but now that was last night. So could something have changed in the last 12 hours, 14 hours? Yeah, possibly, but checking, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I just with Knowles leaving, I just his defense is pretty complicated, and so you got to go reinstall your defense. You got your safeties guys. I mean, you have to take Matt Garari or whatever his name is, the safeties coach, and you've got a bunch of guys that know your system, that know it. I mean, it really took a jump from year one. The first year it was good, but by like year 2 and 3 it was incredible. So, you got to go through reinstalling it, reteaching it to the staff. You've got a pretty good nucleus coming back next year, I think. I mean, you got to figure out who's going to rush the passer. But, I mean, with your interior guys, with Caden McDonald, and up the middle, if they put Sonny Styles at Mike or they keep him at Will, whatever. Arvell, like you got a bunch of guys that know your defense. Your secondary is going to be arguably the best in the country. I mean, if you have Caleb Downs and Davis, and that's a great start, Jermaine Matthews, and get these kids kind of wrangled up. But I don't know, like and you're going to make the most money you can. Now, if there was some ability to potentially, be a coach in waiting, but he's not, I don't really feel like he's after that, like being a head coach. I mean, I don't know if that's kind of passed him by, but he's a little older and he's a little, I don't know, like I feel like he's got a good personality, but if he, like I said, if he was a 37-year-old like wizard defensive, he'd be the hottest coaching candidate in the world. But he's not. He's 60s and older, and so and he's been a head coach before, and so I don't know, but the Knowles thing is fascinating. I mean, Ohio State already has an offer on the table for him to become the highest paid coordinator in the history of college football. So I mean, it's not a money thing. Obviously, we're not going to get outspent. I don't know why you would leave Caleb Downs. I don't. I don't know why you'd leave this front. I don't know. Like I said, it's a big move when you've got to leave somewhere and go replace. And it'd be different. Penn State, they're going to be good, but they've got, they lose Abdul Carter. I mean, they're losing a lot of guys too. So I mean, I don't know why you jump and go to a program that's going to be harder to be successful at. Like Oklahoma and Penn State are second-rate schools, in my opinion. The top tier of the Big Ten is Oregon, Ohio State. Like, do you want to leave a top tier to go to a mid tier and really have to scrap it out and battle? I don't know. I mean, it's my opinion. The Oklahoma thing, I just thought was, Brett Venables has his way of doing things on defense, and it's not the same as Jim Knowles. So, you're fighting a battle with Larry Johnson. Well, if you're gonna battle with a position coach, like what's gonna happen when the head coach wants to do something? Like, what happens when you get ran by, Tennessee or whoever else is in the, and you gotta play in the SEC, LSU or Ole Miss runs you out of the gym. Like, if you're butting heads with Larry Johnson, and again, this isn't some unique thing to Jim Knowles. Like, I've seen firsthand conflict in the staff room. It's not all, rainbow and marshmallows and happiness. And especially when, like with what Larry likes to do with rushing the passer and stuff versus some of the stuff we did early in the season that was conservative, which again, it worked because we finished number one in total defense. Like, you get grumbling from pass rushers when they can't do anything else except cage rush. Like, guys don't like doing that. So Larry has to try to sell that in recruiting and sell that to his Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, and it's like putting handcuffs on your players and saying, all right, guys, go out and try to do the best you can with handcuffs on. And they didn't like it. So again, that's where a lot of the friction comes from. And, but again, I just think that you got to look at the, to me, I don't know how you leave Ohio State, especially like I keep saying with Caleb Downs coming back, makes no sense. It's a bad idea. But we'll see. Like I said, the thing about Ohio State is, I always joke, it's like, you guys have probably been on like a cruise ship. You've seen one of those big Royal Caribbean cruise ship. Like, Ohio State is like one of those big ships. And when someone jumps off the side of it, it doesn't matter if it's Urban Meyer, Woody Hayes, Jim Tressel, Jim Knowles, Troy Smith. When people leave the boat keeps going, and it doesn't notice that they're not on the boat anymore. That's what Ohio State football is. So it doesn't matter. People are losing Jack Sawyer, JT, and Will Howard, and there's always going to be someone next who's coming who could be as good, could potentially be better. I don't know. And that's just kind of the marvel of what has happened at Ohio State over the last, 50 to 20 years or so, where it's like the machine just keeps rolling. And, like I said, I like Jim Knowles. I think that he's crazy. I think that his fiance, I'm sure, is a nice lady, but she's nuts if she makes him go to somewhere like Oklahoma. Because again, it's great to go and maybe strike out on your own and go somewhere else like Oklahoma and leave behind, battling with Larry Johnson or whatever. But, that all sucks when you get destroyed and you're in the, because again, like, I wouldn't want to go to the SEC right now. And again, I know that like the Big Ten's on top of college football right now, but like the SEC is still way deeper and way harder. In my opinion, there's more athletes in that conference than in the Big Ten. The Big Ten looks really good because we've got like we're really top heavy with Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, should be good next year with the quarterback coming back. Indiana kind of came out of nowhere this year, but is that still the juggernaut of the SEC? I don't think so, not in my opinion. And so I wouldn't want to go to a mid-tier SEC school, leave the top school in the nation for a mid-tier SEC school and have to run that gauntlet in the SEC West. There's just no way. The Carnell Tate thing I thought was always interesting because I couldn't see him when he has 1 year to go. And again, I get him being frustrated and he's never going to be the guy here with JJ. I totally get that. But, there is, this thing where he's got 1 year left before he can declare for the draft, go to the league. And if he has a big year, he could easily be a first round pick, just like Emeka will be as a number 2 receiver. But he also has to, realize like, dude, you've been in the system, you've been with Brian Hartline, the offense. Again, like as great as it is to get a bunch of money from a school, like I'm not trusting my development to Oregon. I'm just not. They haven't been efficient in developing wide receivers for the National Football League, not at any sort of high rate. And you'd be leaving the guy who's literally been the best in the history of the game at it, in Brian Hartline. So, I wouldn't want to leave. I don't want to learn a new playbook. I don't want to learn new routes. I don't want to learn a new strength program, a new city. Like, there's just too many variables. Because he's gonna have to deal with that in a year anyways. Because when he goes to the draft, I mean, he could get drafted by the Packers or get drafted by the. I mean, you got to go to a whole new city anyways, and a whole new playbook, and that's not fun to do. He's here now. I mean, he's got everything on rails where he knows everything, knows the system, the players, and he's in like the best offensive scheme there is for wide receivers. So I don't know, but I think that these guys, they like to go get like kind of an accurate representation of what the market value is in NIL, which again, this is the new phenomenon of the last few years where these guys threaten to enter the portal or they enter the portal. And when you go to the portal, if you're Cardinal Tate, you're getting humongous offers. And then you got to say, okay, well, this is what these guys offered me. Now, do you guys want to match it? Do you guys not want to match it? Do you guys should we go our separate ways? And is it worth, a significant amount of money to move? And that's the hard part is, man, like Hero Canoe will get some crazy offer that'll be way higher than like a responsible market would pay. But he'll get some crazy offer just like Zen Mikulski did and George Fitzpatrick. I mean, our backups get high level starter money in the portal, which is crazy. And again, that's why I told people, it's like, as much as everyone worries about recruiting classes and depth, and I'm like, guys, like our backups are going to get harvested by teams like Indiana and Kansas State, and they got money to blow, and they'd love to add a national championship tackle who Zen. I think Zen was on field goal. I don't think he didn't play any actual snaps in the game. So, but that's going to be one of their tackles with Carter Smith next year. So that's going to be the new model. But I'm happy for Davison. I thought he needed another year. Again, we've got a lot of budget freed up because the retention that we spent last year was crazy, and now we got to kind of reinvested in some of these guys. And I think that second portal window would be very interesting because this is a big 3 months here for Julian Sane. If Julian Sane's going to lock this thing down, or is Ryan going to go portaling? Because again, I always go back to 2 years ago when he went through that spring with Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, and he was looking around, and that spring he was going hard after Drake May. Ryan Day was. So Drake May ended up being the third pick in the draft and superstar, future Pro Bowl quarterback. And so Ryan is not shy if he feels like the quarterback isn't going to be what he needs it to be, because the quickest way to upgrade your team is to get a big time quarterback. So any thoughts on that, Nevada? I'll see. I think we got a couple super chats starting to come in.
Well, first let's talk about the Julian Sane thing. The Julian Sane thing is kind of interesting because I think we've been hearing really good reports on Julian Sane. I think the only knock on Julian, and we talked about this on our board, is that he has kind of a laid back kind of California attitude, as it were. And I think that Ohio State's maybe looking for a little more eye of the tiger out of him, and that's just kind of not how he's wired. So it'll be interesting to see if he comes back after this national championship and kind of locks in as the alpha dog and kind of does it. Now, in full disclosure, that was kind of the knock on CJ. That was kind of the knock on CJ Stroud, that he was a little blasé, that he was a little laid back, that he wasn't a vocal leader, that he wasn't a clear alpha, but he could sure spin the football. And as a result, was a really effective quarterback here, and obviously at the next level. So, do I think that's an end all be all? No, but I think your point's an excellent one. Let's watch what Ohio State does or doesn't do in the portal, because if they're pursuing a portal quarterback, you and I will know about that in about 5 seconds, and that will tell us everything that we need to know about how Ryan Day feels about the situation, because your opinion doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. The board's opinion doesn't matter. Ryan Day's opinion is really the only opinion on this that matters. Does he feel like he has his quarterback? And I'm sure there's got to be someone somewhere out there that Ryan can get, but it's not an obvious. Like, does anybody leap to your mind if I said, gun to your head, Kirk, Ryan's just satisfied, wants to get a quarterback? I mean, like, you follow the guys probably closer than I do. You've got an encyclopedic knowledge of these guys, but is there anybody that leaps to your mind that you could even go after in a situation like this?
No, because I feel like every major quarterback, like they want to transfer in right now. so they can go through winter workouts, go through spring ball. If you're serious about it, you got to go now. And that's the thing. So I like, do I think that there's going to be some Will Howard that's going to jump in the portal after spring? I don't know. Now they went after Drake May during the time, and Drake never hit the portal, but there were, again, you have to understand, like, the tampering. And again, I'm not, whatever, like, I'm not accusing, it's not like Ryan calls Drake May and says, "Hey Drake, nice to meet you, would you like to leave Carol?" That's not how it works. I mean, there's always back channels, because the agents are who talk, and, "Hey, how's it going up there? Do you guys like McCord or no?" And I mean, again, when he went after Drake May, that's when I knew that Ryan Day was not sold on Kyle McCord. So when Kyle McCord jumped into the portal, like right after the Michigan game, I was like, yeah, I mean, I knew that he wasn't sold on him. And that wasn't because I threw some dart in my office and hit Drake May. It's just because I was told that, and I had impeccable sourcing on that. So I think Ryan, like, again, he is a quarterback guru, and he knows when he has it and when he doesn't. And that's the thing about, you have to realize, is like, when you're a quarterback driven offense, like most are, if he feels like the guy isn't national championship caliber, top 5 pick caliber, or close to that, then it's going to be tough. And I think that he, I just, I don't know. Like I said, this is big. I mean, but you got to understand, like, Julian Saint is the guy that Nick Saban handpicked in his last recruiting class. Now, he never played for him because he resigned 20 days later or whatever. But Julian's a guy that very, very, very sought after. Very, very good player. But like you said, is he a vocal, demonstrative Will Howard? No, but like you said, CJ wasn't exactly, hellfire and brimstone, so again, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat at quarterback, and there's some guys that are, very demonstrative, very vocal, very whatever. But I do think that you need some of that in the quarterback room, because I think that, the quarterback is the leader of the team by default. And if you don't have that and other guys have to do the leading, I think it's very difficult. I think with Julian, he'll, I really like him. Like I said, we watched his tape, and I know that he duffed that one ball into the ground when he played late in the season, but I just think that he's got a lot of upside and talent, and he's just got to get the ball. Again, you don't have to be some Brett Favre, force it in there and gunslinger, because when you've got JJ and Carnell and these guys, man, like, Brandon Ennis, you don't need that kind of, you don't need that. You don't have to do everything. Those guys are going to be open by so much, and plus, you're going to have good running backs, man. I mean, I love Donaldson Jr. I think he's really good. And I think that James Peoples is a really good player. And our offensive line is going to be excellent. I mean, you saw the development of our interior guys and how well they played. Our tackles obviously will be new, but they're good. And they're guys that, frankly, we picked over Zen and George Fitzpatrick. We could have kept those guys and paid those guys, but we felt like we needed an upgrade. So they did. So this offense is going to be unbelievable next year. And again, like I said, ESPN has this as preseason #1. So this isn't like the Nevada and Kirk Sunshine Pumper Tour. It's like, no, we look at the team and the talent and the coaching staff. And that's why, like, to me, I just don't know why, if Jim Knowles can get a raise. And again, I always feel like when there's all these overtures from Penn State and from Oklahoma and whoever else is going after Jim Knowles, like, when that's going on, I always feel like it's just leveraging from the agent to get more money, which is fine. Again, like, it's the same thing happens with these NIL kids where, when there's all the smoke around Carnell Tate leaving, and, who are you going to say he's going to go to? Oregon, of course, because why not? Oregon, Miami, the two that spend like drunken sailors. And we probably gave Carnell more money because of that, because again, if you just, Ohio State, they're going to offer you as little as they think they can to keep you, obviously, because they're not trying to overspend, but if they got to spend more to keep you, they're going to. And that's something that I've heard some of the offers Ohio State's offered to players, and then I've heard what they get on the open market. It's just, so some of them, it's insane, the difference. But that's why these guys shop around a little bit. But I like I said, I like Jim Knowles, and at the end of the day, he's going to be a legend to me forever because he won us a national championship, and we finished #1 in total defense. We had, I don't know if it was Texas or whoever we played. Oregon, negative rushing yardage in one of those games, like, just unconscious from a defensive standpoint. So, Hey, if he goes to Penn State, great. We'll survive. We've lost Mark D'Antonio. We've lost, Jeff Halfley and Luke Fickle. And like I said, Ohio State is like the biggest Royal Caribbean boat this is the size of a city, and it just keeps rolling along. It doesn't matter who jumps out. Orlando Pace can get off, and we'll get, a Paris Johnson. Or there's always someone coming that'll be just as good, that'll be dying for the opportunity. And honestly, if they would take, if Knowles would leave, I'm promoting Matt Gary to the new DC, the safeties coach. He'd be the next guy, and he's the guy that's on that track of he'll be the DC here. He'll run the same defense. The verbiage and everything will be the same, and then all of a sudden he'll be a head coach in 3 years or so or less. I mean, I think he's the next hot shot on the staff. But that's what I would do, just because then you keep the continuity. Because I'm big on continuity, and I think that you owe that to guys like Davison and the older guys that came back, because if they can keep the same verbiage and the same system, because if you bring in a new defensive coordinator, a lot of change is going to happen. Now, it's not bad. You can do that. But I think that hopefully it doesn't come to that and just Jim Knowles stays. Any thoughts on that, Nevada?
Yeah, I mean, look, my position on all this stuff has always been that case or roster, we got the national championship. I've always believed, especially on defense. I think that defensively, I think it's about making a good hire. If you were going to change, it's about making a good hire. I think offensively, it's a much bigger risk because you've got a guy that's in Chip. You don't want to lose Chip Kelly to the NFL. That is for sure. Now the question would be if Knowles left, would he take Matt Greene with him? You know what I'm saying? And that's where you would be in a situation where James Laurinaitis going to be a really good coach. Is he ready to be a defensive coordinator? I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's only been 1 year as a full-time staffer at Ohio State. But look, I wonder really what could have changed all that much from telling players that he's returning. So I don't know. I like I said, I'm having a hard time getting worked up about it, though. I really, I really want to be nervous or sad or confused or whatever, but I'm just not. I'm not going to stop smiling from the national championship for a very, very long time. No matter what happens with Carnell Tate or Davison or Jermaine Matthews, Hero Canoe, Tywan Malone, Jim Knowles, Chip Kelly. The one that would really, really hurt would be losing Ryan Day. If you lost Ryan Day, to me that would be really, really bad. I think that would be one of those ones where I would, I always tell people on the show, we'll tell you when to be sad or when to panic or when to be concerned. That would be one that I'd be really, really concerned about because, if you lose your head coach and you don't have a ready replacement, a guy that's you think is ready to step in and keep the team together, or keep NIL together, or keep the staff together, then that's a problem. But losing any player or losing a coordinator or losing whatever, I'm just having a hard time getting worked up about it. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to happen anyway. So I'm really having a hard time getting worked up about it. But that's just where I'm at. I mean, you and I haven't had a chance to talk about this in the pre-show. What's your concern level on a scale of 1 to 10 about losing Chip Kelly or Jim Knowles or a player? I mean, where does it? Because I honestly don't know where that rates for you. I don't know if that's a big deal to you, a little deal to you, or a no deal to you, huge deal. I have no idea.
I just think it's like a 1 or a 0. I don't care. I mean, again, I'm not trying to be Mr. Tough Guy, but you look at, when you start rolling and this thing's about to start rolling with the roster and with the NIL and how good we are, people are going to come after your people. This is Nick Saban, and this is why Saban is the GOAT by far, is because not only did he win 7 rings, but his staff turned over like 10 times. Like, you look at his staff from 2007, and he had like 6 or 7 offensive line coaches, and he had 6 or 7 different coordinators on offense and defense, because that's the thing that I really liked about with the way our staff is set up, is like we've got 2 older guys that aren't, they've kind of had their, and I'm not saying Jim Knowles, I think he's head coach at Cornell, but he's not, the spring chicken dashing young, good looks, slick back hair guy that people want at the front of their program. Because again, as dumb as it sounds, like you got to be a great coach, but looks do matter. Age matters. Like when people are trying to throw the bag at you to make to lead their program, like so a guy like Hartline is going to be desirable if he ever becomes a coordinator. I mean, people want to go after him for a head coach, and that's why he gets interviews because he's young, he's got the look, he's been very productive in his room. He's a great recruiter. The question is, does that translate to the whole team, or is that just he's a really good wide receiver recruiter? Because again, he hasn't had to recruit the whole team yet, and that's something that when you're just the receivers coach, like you're not recruiting offensive tackles, and when you're the coordinator, you're a little bit more involved in that. But I think with Knowles and Chip Kelly, Chip's had enough warts on him where he didn't survive the NFL, and there's all these stupid morons like Shady McCoy and Jason Pierre is a Hall of Famer, and those guys speak very ill of Chip Kelly, and when they speak of him, which again, that's their opinion. I don't think that it's valid, but I think that helps keep him here. I think that owners and head coaches listen to some of that stuff, and they say, okay, well, he didn't do great in Philly, or he made Shady McCoy go to bed before 2 a.m. and monitor his sleep and drink water, so he's a bad guy. But again, I always look at every single variable as to what could lead guys to getting poached. And Chip's older too. I mean, Chip's and does he want to go do all of the nonsense that Ryan has to do, where Ryan has to go around and do all of this shucking and jiving in front of all these donors and trying to get make money and raise money for NIL and beg kids to stay. Like, I mean, does Chip really want to do that? I mean, I'm sure Chip's got to be involved in it, but like being there's never been a better time to be a young person, young coach, with that young energy than now. Because I mean, Ryan's done, but I mean, these guys, I'm sure they probably took a couple days off, but they got to work to retain the roster and figure out who's coming, who's going, staff, extensions. I mean, Justin Fry doesn't have a contract right now. I don't believe, or it's expiring. So you got to figure out who's staying, what are they making. I don't know. Like I said, if we lose Jim Knowles, we'll survive. Well, and again, that's why I think I would promote Matt, and because then that locks him in, because he's not going to follow Jim Knowles to be the safeties coach when he can be the coordinator. And again, he was the defensive coordinator at Indiana last year, and he did a good job. Not this past year, 2 years ago, we went out and played him week 1, and we didn't exactly look like we were the God's gift to offense that day. His defense did a really nice job on us, so I think he would be the obvious pick. He's been a coordinator before. James, who I love to death, I don't think he's ready to call a defense. He's only been coaching for 1 year. I think give him 2 more years and he'll be ready to go. But I think that you promote Matt, who's been a solid defensive coordinator at Indiana, knows the system, and he knows Knowles' system better than anybody in that building. So I think that would be very helpful. But yeah, like that's the thing I like about the structure of this, especially if Knowles re-ups, is that those guys, they'll be desirable, but I just don't think Chip Kelly and Jim Knowles are as desirable as like the younger, the Dan Lanning on on Georgia's staff or on Bama's staff or whatever, like the guy that people are going to be dying to push. Because honestly, like you look at like the Detroit Lions, and as soon as they lose both coordinators. Johnson goes to Chicago and takes JT. Congrats to JT Barrett. He's the new quarterbacks coach for the Chicago Bears, which is awesome because we love JT Barrett around here. And Glenn goes to the Jets. Like that's kind of what happens when you become a really successful organization, is all of a sudden, your guys are going to get poached. But like I said, we've got, like if Hartline was our play caller right now, I'd be real worried about him getting poached just because of the youth and the recruiting. But, when you get to be older, man, you don't, if you're 60s and old and like, do you really want to go be tweeting and Instagram DMing guys, to recruit them all the time? Like, I don't know. So that's my thought. Like, if we lose those guys, it's been great. They gave us a national championship. I'll never be upset about any of it. It just is what it is. And again, that's going to be the biggest issue with what Ryan's gonna have to deal with is people are going to come after his people big time. And again, I'm like you, if Ryan left, it would put Mark Pantoni at risk. It would put Mickey Marotti at risk. It'd put a lot of guys that potentially would go with Ryan. Now, I don't know if they would, but when you bring in, if you lose Ryan, if he would go to the NFL and becomes a hot name in the NFL, there's going to be, you have to obviously hire an A-list coach. And a lot of times when an A-list coach comes, he brings his own strength coach. He brings his own personnel guy. He brings his own guys that have kind of risen up the ranks with him that he trusts. And, because when you get a shot to do this and you got to go grab, a bull by the horns, like becoming the head coach at Ohio State, you need as many guys around you that are all in and trust your way and your system as possible. And again, and I'm not saying that, like, obviously Mickey and Mark, they stayed through Urban transitioning out and Ryan transitioning in, but I don't know. Losing Ryan would be devastating just because he's been good. And he's like you said, he's young. Like if Ryan was our offensive coordinator right now and Chip was our head coach, every school in the country would be going after Ryan Day to be their head coach. So that's kind of like the cool part is that Ryan's the head coach and he can't really upgrade his livelihood, unless he wants to go be a head coach of the Patriots or because he dreams of being a head coach in the NFL. And again, I always feel like, and I'm just speaking for Ryan, like if you're, a head coach and you're competitive, there's always this part of you where you're sitting and you're like, man, I really want to see if I can win a Super Bowl, like kind of like the Harbaugh thing where he won the Natty and then he wanted to go try to win a Super Bowl and see if he could hit both and be one of the few coaches that have ever done that. But again, I think that, because coaching at Ohio State is exhausting. Like, I mean, you saw the article in the Columbus Dispatch today where some of the most vile human beings in the world were literally texting Ryan that he should kill himself like his dad did. And again, and you have to understand, like, a lot of the people that say crazy stuff to Ryan, they hate Ken and I, or excuse me, Nevada and I too. And that's something that's, we've dealt with the lunatic fringe because they don't like us and we ban them and it's the same idiots and we all know their names. So that gets old after a while because I don't think that NFL coaches deal with that level of insanity. And again, that's what, Herb Street's talked about and we've talked about. And again, that's like on our board, like we know who those people are and we literally put a bullet in their head as soon as they show up because we don't let those people around us. And we know exactly who they are. We know their names. But that's the kind of stuff that would worry me with Ryan. Any thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, I mean, Ryan was interviewed and he talked about, how he has no interest in leaving Ohio State for now. That his kids are of an age right now that he doesn't want to move for now. And I mean, I think that it's inevitable that he's going to move on to the NFL, but that's not going to be today and it's not going to be tomorrow. So I think, that's a worry for another day. And that's probably, frankly, what's keeping a guy like Brian Hartline around because Brian Hartline wants a path to the big seat, and he wants to have a future at Ohio State. And if Ryan was going to be there for 25 years, maybe Brian Hartline doesn't stay around. But if, Brian's sitting there going, hey, someday I can be the offensive coordinator, and then someday maybe I can move up and be the head coach, then, that might be attractive. So, with every action, there's always an equal and opposite reaction. So, I'm, on the whole, considering everything that could have happened, everything that's potentially was happening and the peril that Ohio State was in this offseason, I think, so far, it's been a really good offseason for Ohio State. And, hopefully that continues. But as you said, regardless of what happens, nothing is going to wipe the smile off my face.
Yeah.
Just nothing. There's nothing that could happen short of Ryan Day announcing tomorrow that he's going to coach the Patriots that would put me in a, oh wow, that's bad. And I mean that sincerely. There's literally nothing could happen that would do that. I think that the ship is that indestructible and moving down the path, and we're the defending national champions, and life doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, you sell out everything to win a national title. Like you go all in, you spend all this money on retention, spend all this money on coordinators and coaches and everything else because to grab the brass ring. And it's like, you think about all the times where we've come up short and all the times where we were right there and we didn't cross the finish line and how hard it is to do and how much luck you need. I mean, you need a lot of luck to win a national title. Because again, it's a lot of skill and it's a lot of, our coaches are great, gurus, players are great, but you need some breaks too. And that's something where everything kind of fell into place and we won. And again, I'm not saying that this seems lucky. This seems really damn good. But you like I said, like we played the Florida Gators, man, and Ted Ginn broke his leg on the first play of the game. Like that wasn't I don't think people realize, like, go look at his stat line versus Michigan. He was the best player on the field. And when he beat in the 1-versus-2 game, he had 7 or 8 catches and like 120 yards. And I mean, he was unbelievable in that game. He was the focal point of our offense. And he was going to be in that game too. And when his leg gets broken half on the first play, then it hurts. You know, like I said, if we would have been playing in that game against Notre Dame and Will Howard gets knocked out on the first play of the game, then you're like, God bless, this isn't ideal. But I just, like I said, that's why I'm just so happy that they got it over the hill. They pushed the stone up the hill and it started rolling down and we got the win. And like I said, because it's just so hard to do, man. And it's like, you got to beat your very best on that one night. And then if you're not, then you're back to square one. And again, that's why, with Ryan, I mean, he, that Georgia game that we lost a couple years ago where we missed the field goal, and he's been so close, because if we play that TCU team, we run them out of the gym the way Georgia did, and so that would have been a natty. And 19 where Olave goes the wrong way and Justin throws a pick, like we could have probably played. I mean, that LSU team was incredible with Jefferson and Chase. I think we would have given them a game, at least give us a chip and a chair. I mean, we that Clemson team was, I thought we were better than, especially with our defense. But I don't know, like when you win this thing, it's just it's bragging rights for a long time. Again, superseding Michigan's national championship is always wonderful, because you realize that, as much trash as they would have talked that they've got the recency of we've got the more recent national championship, that's all dead and gone now. So yeah, I just, if we lost everybody and had to start from scratch, if we lost every player, every coach, I'd still be happy and smiling and happy for the program and for the players and whatever. So we're going to do better than that. We're going to keep a lot of these guys. And I think we end up keeping, most of the coaching staff. I think we keep Jim Knowles. And, again, if you just go through kind of the whole thought process, if Jim Knowles really has beef with Larry Johnson, which again, that sounds very real, and it probably is very real, because again, there's always beef on coaching staffs. Trust me. Is it going to get better if you go to Oklahoma and now the head coach is the real defensive coordinator and you're like the subservient? Because I don't think that I make a big enough deal about that. But like with Ryan Day being the head coach and being an offensive coordinator background and quarterback and all that, he really lets Jim Knowles run the show. You go to Brent Venables in Oklahoma, like that guy is always going to kind of have his hand in the cookie jar of the defense. It's like with Nick Saban, like again, the guys that were defensive coordinators for Nick Saban was still running the defense. It was still his defense, and he was the guy that made the final calls and stuff. And if you want to get your hind end ripped, then guess what? Like, if you do something that's not of his liking or not of his structure or not of his belief system on defense, then, and it doesn't go right, it's going to be real bad. So I don't know why like I said, the Venables thing just never made sense. I get that you're closer. I get that you're in Oklahoma, but you're going down a tier and you got to play in a harder conference. And I still believe the SEC is better than the Big Ten. I know that we're Big Ten folks up here and love Ohio State, but if you said, Kirk, if you have the power to move Ohio State into the SEC tomorrow, would you do it? I'd be like, no, I don't want to play Ole Miss. I don't want to play Tennessee. I don't want to play Georgia, Florida, because at any given moment, if any of those programs get the right coach, they can be really good, because they just have they can get great athletes. South Carolina, where like when we play, half the Big Ten, their athletes aren't in the same universe as our guys. Whereas like in the SEC, like you get down to some of the lesser teams and they've got really good athletes. So again, on any given Saturday, if those athletes decide to show up and yours don't, it can lead to a catastrophe of a loss. So I don't know. This is my opinion. Nevada, any thoughts? We'll dig into some super chats.
No, I agree with you on the SEC, and again, I'm not an SEC wonk or anything like that,
No.
but like I'm telling you, I didn't want to play Ole Miss this year in the playoff. When they announced that Ole Miss didn't make the playoff, I was like, oh, that's good. I didn't want to play Jackson Dart and all those monsters on the defensive line.
I don't want to play Bama. I didn't.
No. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that top to bottom, some of those teams are scary, whereas for Ohio State, Purdue's never going to be scary, or even frankly, Iowa and Maryland and Rutgers and even when Indiana's a top 5 team,
Like we just out
Yeah.
athlete them to a point where it's, obviously they had a very soft schedule and they rose up the ranks and whatever. But like, I just, any given day you have to go play at Ole Miss at the Grove, or hell, even if you play Florida, like Florida's got like some crazy athletes. Now Florida's the kind of team they could lose to the worst team in the country, or they could beat the best team in the country. That's their spread. Kentucky sometimes has good players. Like, I don't know. You go play Kentucky at night sometimes and you watch them almost beat Georgia, and because they've got legitimate like guys, they've got guys that could be top 10 picks on their team, but Purdue like never does. Iowa, like I'm never scared to play Iowa for the most part. Once every 20 years, they'll have a team that's competitive. Michigan State, we're ever scared to play Michigan State? No. So that's where my thing is like, so I don't know why Jim Knowles would want to go, let's go to Oklahoma and be in the SEC West and have to play Texas A&M. You have to run that gauntlet. You have to go down to College Station and go to Austin. And I don't know, and your guys aren't going to be as good. I mean, you're going to have the same level of athletes as your competition. Whereas like when you're at Ohio State, you're going to have better players. You have better players every week when you're at Ohio State. That's why it doesn't make sense to me. Like it can't be that bad. So just my opinion. All right, let's do some super chats. Shit for healthcare. What's up, my man? Thanks for the 20. Appreciate you. This might be unpopular, but what do you need to do to keep Knowles? If that means Larry has to go, then he has to go. Knowles won the argument after the Oregon game for the reason, and the results can't be denied. Well, I mean, I don't know. Well, it seems like an easy thing is to put, send Larry to the big shuffleboard court in the sky, but he's making $900,000 right now to be the D-line coach. And he's the reason we got Edric Houston, and he's the reason why a lot of these guys are here. So do you want to flip that over and risk some of these guys hitting the portal just because of Jim Knowles? Because like I said, it's not like we were it's not like we just had the best defense in school history. So I don't want to do anything. I mean, if those guys got to sit in a room and, kumbaya together, like let's figure it out. Because, why would you want to destroy something when we just had the best season ever, in my opinion, on defense? But that's just my opinion. Nevada, if it means Larry has to go, because I don't think it does, and people keep wanting Larry to retire and stuff. I'm like, guys, like he's coached for like 50 years, and like the first 30 years he was making pinto beans, and now he's making serious money to coach really good players. And I just don't know if you'd want it. Like, coaches are lifers, man. A lot of these guys, they're gonna die in their office because once they get into it, they can't. It's intoxicating and they just can't stop. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I hate getting into the hypothetical game on something where you're like talking about somebody leaving or something like that, because it feels like it's just like a bunch of negative energy. And I'm not complaining about the question. The question is a great question. But yeah, I mean, to me, it would be easy, in the hypothetical of, do you keep Knowles or do you keep Larry? It would seem pretty straightforward that Knowles is younger. Knowles has got more, miles to go. And, either one of them is going to be a loss. But to me, Knowles would be the bigger loss than losing the D-line coach. But again, I hate the hypothetical. But, gun to my head, to me, that would be an easy one. I mean, that would take me 4 seconds to make that decision. That's why the whole thing is so interesting. And so it's got so many layers to it, and it's so confounding because it's clearly not about money. It's clearly not about, it's about an issue between those two. And you would think they're big enough boys that they could work that stuff out. And, Ryan's obviously an A+++ salesman. I'm sure, cooler heads will prevail and they'll move forward. So fingers crossed that works out that way.
Yeah, I agree. James Hammond, thanks for the 5. Why in the world would Knowles take a step backwards and go to Penn State? I don't know. Because like the other thing I would ask is, well, why did Tom Allen leave after 1 year? I mean, Tom Allen was there for 1 year and he just went to Clemson. And again, I guess on paper, Clemson could be a better job, but to me, I don't, they've taken 10 steps back from where they were when they were real good in the mid 2010s. Like when we played them in 19, when they had Deshaun and then they had Trevor Lawrence, like they've taken a huge step back. But I would really want to know, like, why would a guy leave after 1 year? Because in coaching in general, like the thing that Urban would always demand is a 2-year commitment. If I hire you, you have to give me 2 years. You can't leave after one. If you do that, it's going to be now. Again, there's nothing that can really enforce that, because like Jeff Hafley left after a year with Ryan, and sometimes guys leave after a year because they get some sort of a, like Jeff Hafley got offered a head coaching job after 1 year. So I mean, it's hard to keep a guy as a coordinator. But Tom Allen did a lateral move after 1 year, which is kind of a no-no in coaching. Like to go be, if you want to be a head coach again, that's one thing, but to literally go DC from Penn State to Clemson, like that's a big. So I would, like, if I'm Jim Knowles and the Penn State thing is what everyone's thinking, I'm just like, well, why did your guy just leave after 1 year? Like, what's going on in that staff room? Because it's not like you're going to walk into some staff room and everybody's going to be happy-go-lucky and whatever. There's a lot of dynamics, man. Because again, like when you're Jim Knowles, like you're saying, hey, if I come over there, I'm bringing 3 of my coaches. I'm going to hire. You want to flip that room to be your allies, and then you might retain a guy or two. But in general, like if when that coordinator leaves, like a guy like Jim Knowles is going to want to bring 2 or 3 of his guys. And that was something that I think he realized he screwed up, or Ryan Day screwed up when he hired Jim Knowles. But then he also hired Perry Eliano to be the safeties coach, and Perry, God bless him, didn't know Jim's defense the way that Matt did. And so for a year that was kind of discombobulated. And then we went out and signed Matt to be the new safeties coach. Cause again, like if you're like the old Parcells saying where when he was fighting with Robert Kraft about drafting players and stuff, like, if you're there, if they want you to cook the meal, you should be allowed to go shop for the groceries. Like that's what it's like when you're building your defensive staff. Like, and I think Ryan learned a lesson from not letting Jim Knowles bring a couple of his guys to be position coaches. Now he let Corey McFarland and some of these guys come in as analysts, but you got to let the guy bring in his own people to run the show, especially at safety, because when it's the safety driven defense and you got to coach that secondary, like it can't be Jim Knowles doing everything. This is kind of the same way where Ryan handed off the offense to Chip Kelly and he could actually go be a CEO. Like on a more micro level, it's like with Jim Knowles, he has to hand off that secondary to someone that he trusts, and like Matt Greene, who literally is he's excellent, and he does a really good job back there. And you see the development of our safeties, and again, that was the best trio of safeties that I think we'll ever see at Ohio State, with Caleb and Jordan Hancock and Lathan. So I don't know, Nevada, your thoughts? Why would Jim Knowles take a step backwards and go to Penn State?
I mean, that would be a weird one. That would be a weird one, this is when the stories they'll get out. Remember, the initial story was his hot fiance won't leave the state of Oklahoma, and so he's got to go back. And now you got Penn State. So, none of it really makes any sense because, Penn State's defense without Abdul Carter, that's not a great defense. And as you said, Tom Allen left after 1 year to go to Clemson, and you're leaving Ohio State then to go to Penn State. Somebody would have to make that make sense to me, because it absolutely does not make sense to me. And so that's why I'm, for now, I'm skeptical, Hippo. I could change, with new information, but right now, none of that makes any sense to me.
Yeah, well, and like in the whole girlfriend thing's like, well, okay, well now you get to fly to State College, which is even further away than Columbus from Oklahoma. I don't know if they've ever used a map in the Knowles household, but that's why, like, if the whole thing is the fiance, it's like, well, getting to Columbus is a lot easier than getting to State College. I don't know how many of you guys ever tried to fly into State College, but it's not. You're usually flying into Harrisburg or somewhere else and driving. Columbus, you can get in and you got a great airport. So I don't know. Like sometimes I just feel like it's a slow time of the year and people have to make narratives up. Like the girlfriend doesn't want to leave Oklahoma or the fiance or whatever. And I'm just like, well, get her, build net jet miles into your deal. Say, okay, you get, if you're going to get a $3 million deal, say I get my girlfriend can use the net jet every few, for up to $500,000 for her to fly. So heaven forbid she has to see the inside of a terminal. I don't know. Like there's creative ways to do things. Pooh 12, thank you for the 10, and thank you for being an Ultra member as well. I appreciate you, my man. Will Howard had 8 games this season with over 80% completions. The last 3 Heisman QB seasons, Daniels, Williams, and Young combined for 6 such games versus worst competition even 2019 Burrow only had 4. Legendary. Again, why this guy wasn't in New York for the Heisman ceremony is a crime against humanity. Because again, like, we don't promote these guys. Like, if you don't promote these guys, it's like we don't even know that they exist, and that should have been at the front of every mailer or the front of everything that you send out to all these people that vote for the Heisman. We have a list of it inside the Woody Hayes, and we know what. So again, the guys that vote for these awards, they should be getting a mailer that says, "Look at what Will Howard just did: 80% completions, highest quarterback rating in the country, and he played the hardest schedule in the country." So I don't know what else he has to do. And you also have to remember, like, we were a balanced team. So as much as people want to glaze over stupid, he didn't this much yardage or this many touchdown passes, I'm like, well, we had 2,000-yard rushers too, and he didn't play in a lot of the fourth quarters. So I don't know. Like, when you want a winner and the best player on the best team, it's Will Howard. Like I said, he's the unanimous pick for most valuable player on this team is Will Howard. Not even close. But yeah, I mean, it's a historic season that I don't think we'll ever see anything like it again. I know people say CJ and Haskins, but to be that efficient throwing the ball with that completion percentage, it's crazy. And the credit goes to the receivers and the running backs too, and the offensive line. There's a lot of credit, but Will's the guy that's got to put the ball in the money, and he was fantastic. So when people say he can't play in the NFL, I'm like, he can't play in the NFL, but JJ McCarthy is a top 10 pick. And there was never a time where I was like, God, look at how good JJ McCarthy is. He'd run around, he'd make some plays, good arm, not great arm, but he's a top 10 pick, and Will Howard can't play dead. Like, I don't understand it. I'll never understand it. Nevada, your thoughts on Will having 8 games with 80% completions?
Yeah, crazy success. And you look at, do you know how many turnovers he had this year in 16 games? He had 11, 10 interceptions, and that one fumble through the back of the end zone against Penn State. 11 turnovers in 16 games against that schedule. I mean, talk about like efficiency combined with taking care of the ball, combined with leadership, combined with running the bill. I mean, he had the whole package. And it's just funny that I really feel like it was a season that flew under the radar, not only for the national media, but for a lot of Ohio State fans. I mean, if you guys are honest, a lot of the Ohio State fans kind of missed it. They missed the whole season. I don't know how they missed it. We tried to talk to them about it here, and I was accused of being, Will Howard's dad or whatever, whatever words you use for that. But I mean, he was amazing. I mean, if you take a step back and look what he did, and we've talked about this before, but on the biggest play of the year with a national championship on the line, what do? Will Howard deep ball, 56-yard pass to JJ to clinch the national championship. How fitting was that? It was perfect symmetry. And for my money, he goes down as the greatest quarterback in Ohio State history. That may be blasphemous. People think, oh, no, it was this guy or that guy or that guy. For me, it's Will Howard. Now, could somebody be better in the future? Absolutely. But right now, state of Nevada, who's the best quarterback in Ohio State history? To me, it's Will Howard. And it might be close, but I'm not sure it's really close either. For me, I think he's a clear step above everybody that's ever played there ever. And finally, in college. Now, I'm not talking about the NFL or who's going to have more success or who's going to do this. I'm just talking about as a college quarterback, as a force of nature in college. To me, Will Howard was the best Ohio State quarterback of all time. Final answer.
Yeah, because I don't care what they do in the NFL. That means nothing. I mean, are you the same way? Like, people say, who's the best quarterback in Ohio State? This is like, well, I mean, Mike Tomczak played like 16 years in the NFL. Like, do I care about that in terms of what he did in Ohio State? I don't. Now, you guys could be different, but I mean, with this 1 year, man, it's the best season in school history, in my opinion, for him. Statistically, I know that Haskins had more yardage and 50 touchdowns, but did he win and will the team to win and keep everything calm? And another stat that I saw that's crazy in Nevada is that Trey Henderson never lost a fumble ever. He put the ball in the ground, but he recovered it. But he never lost a fumble ever.
That's unreal. That's unreal.
For a guy that carried the ball that many times, we'll never see that one again either. And that's so hard because it just takes one helmet on the ball in the pile or one rip out or And for that to happen, it's just like, I don't know. It's something. Like I said, we've seen some guys that were thoroughly, they're going to be missed, you know. And again, I think that people sadly don't realize that how good these guys are until they're gone. Tater Buck, thanks for the 5. Do you think the playoff format or NIL needs fine tuned? You guys are the goats of Buckeye football. Appreciate you, my man. And you need a natty flag in the background. Yeah, we'll design a logo for the natty. We'll do another gear drop pretty quick here and to celebrate the national championship. But yeah, the playoff format needs to switch. They need to do, I think you just go 16 teams, no bye weeks, and just go right through. And I think you reseed after each round so that, you know, if you're you want the number one seed to be overpowered so that guys, so that, you know, again, you want that regular season to mean a lot. And, you know, if you have a higher seed, if you redo the seeding, then it's really overpowered, as opposed to Nevada, who was the first guy to say it to me, where he said, you know, that number 5 seed is actually the best seed because, you know, you're going to play the worst play-in team, the 12 seed, and then you're going to play Arizona State or Boise State as opposed to playing Ohio State. Like, I mean, like I said, Oregon, and we don't feel bad for Oregon, but you know, if Ohio State was in the same shoes and was the 1 seed, and then in the first round they had to play Oregon, who's, you know, really good, like, and then you see the 5 seed has to play Boise or Arizona State, like that's completely unfair in my opinion. I think that the automatic bye for the teams that are in the 2 lesser conferences needs to be gone. It's interesting, you know, they're talking about this meeting of the SEC and the Big Ten getting together in the next week or two, Nevada, and you know, I'm sure that that's going to be a big topic of discussion. Well, you know, why should Boise State and Arizona State get an automatic bid, an automatic bye? I think they should get an automatic, you know, spot in the playoff, but they shouldn't be one of the top 4 automatically. I think that's crazy. But yeah, that needs tweaked. NIL, I think that everyone wants a salary cap. I don't know how you do a salary cap, honestly, because you can say everyone gets X amount of dollars, you know, $20 million for a team or whatever. But I just don't know how, because like in the NFL, there's a salary cap, obviously, for what a team can pay you. But, you know, if you're a really marketable star, like on the side, you can make a lot of money in endorsements. Like Odell Beckham was one of the highest paid players in the NFL because at his peak, he had a ton of endorsements. I mean, he had, you know, video games and Head and Shoulders, and he was making like $25 million a year in endorsements on top of his $20 million in salary. So he was making like $45 million a year, something crazy like that, where he was making more money off the field than on it. So, you know, if you cap what a team can pay a player, like if you say, okay, Ohio State, you've got $25 million to spend on the roster. Well, how do you cap what they make off the field with the NIL deals? Because again, that's NIL, you know, again, by how it was initially written was, okay, you know, if American Eagle wants Jeremiah Smith to do commercials, they can pay him, you know, 500 grand or $1 million, whatever. And then, you know, he'll do commercials wearing, you know, corduroys and a Henley or whatever, and they'll pay him. But that's outside of the purview of what Ohio State pays them. So again, I don't know how you do a cap. I mean, I know that you can, but with the fair market, it's like, I don't know. You can say, okay, well, Ohio State can only pay X, but there's going to be all these other outside players that can still pay these kids and get them to the school. So again, I don't know how you do that. That's not my thing, but it's like the system right now. Obviously the portal thing is crazy where, you know, you've got kids leaving and showing up, and we had 145 guys on the bowl trip, which is normally you've got 100, you know, we had 45, we had 40 more guys because we had all these early enrollees and all these transfers and plus nobody graduated. So normally it's a much lighter trip. So I don't know. It's going to be fascinating. Nevada, your thoughts on the playoff format being tuned? I think you're probably in line with what I said. And then does NIL need tuned? Once again, it does, but I just don't know how you do it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, get rid of the auto top bids. That'll solve a bunch of the problems. As you mentioned, the Big Ten, SEC are probably going to be asking for more auto spots, like 3 or 4 each per conference. They're going to continue to flex on the smaller conferences because they can. And so look for closer and more engaged involvement between those 2 conferences going forward, because that's clearly the way that this is moving. As for NIL, everybody wants it. Everybody wants guidelines. Everybody knows it's bad for the sport the way that it is right now. I actually think it's probably going to be congressional action. there's certainly a you know there's enough political will between the Big Ten and the SEC to get something through the Congress that would grant college football maybe antitrust exemption or something that would enable them to put guidelines in place that could stand, bear scrutiny with the courts. And I think it's as simple as cap the amount of money the teams can give and make sure that other deals are fair market value. That would at least be a start. And people can all talk about how they'd game that and, oh well, what about this and what about that? But at least that would be something better than what we have right now. But I really do believe it's going to be done legislatively because that's the only way that you can ensure that the courts fall in line with this. And I think the Congress wants this. The big conferences want it, and I think that's how it gets done.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Like if you can legislate it, and the fair market value is always funny because like when you're paying JJ, this much money to do an American Eagle ad, and all the other models are making $12 an hour, it's like
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
like
Yeah,
why are they making $1 million to be in the photos?
Yeah.
Bob 43 Crable, thanks for the 5. Is Sincere Johnson out of Cleveland the real deal? I've seen he has Notre Dame and of course Ohio State in his top 10. Love your show, Notre Dame alum. Well, congrats. I mean, Notre Dame. I thought Notre Dame fought. Again, it's easier for Marcus. Obviously, it's like losing sucks. And again, this is from the world's expert of losing national championships because I lost 2 of them. But the Florida game was much different than the LSU game to me because like at least LSU we fought. Florida we just kind of rolled over and died, which was embarrassing and terrible. But Notre Dame, I mean, you guys should be proud. I mean, you guys, it was 31-7 and it could have been 62-7 and they came back and fought and made it a game and they didn't get it done, but at least you can sleep at night that your guys didn't roll over and die. I think Sincere's good. I mean, he's the guy that probably end up being a Buckeye. He's a guy that we like and we get some really good players out of Cleveland, so that makes a lot of sense. Nevada, your thoughts on Sincere Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, look, the one thing I want to say about Notre Dame, at the game, met a lot of Notre Dame fans. All of them were nice. All of them were nice. There wasn't one bad Notre Dame fan that I met. Now, maybe it's because they went to the game kind of expecting to lose, or whatever the reason was. They were all very nice, and that's not always the case. I've dealt with some fan bases that were less than nice, and the Notre Dame people I know are nice. So, hats off to them. I think they had a great year this year, and yeah, that's what I got. And I saw a lot of people dressed up like leprechauns. There were a lot of leprechauns at that game. A lot of them.
They were actually dressed up like the mascot.
They really were. They were dressed up like leprechauns, and it was kind of cool because I like leprechauns. I always think leprechauns are kind of lucky. Like clowns are creepy, but leprechauns I think are kind of cool. And it was kind of cool to be around a lot of leprechauns, and there were a bunch of them.
I like it. Nick Ma 71, thanks. He said, I read on 11W. Trey only put it on the turf twice in 4 years, never lost it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty damn good. I mean, Trey, like, you want to talk about, ancillary things that NFL people look at. Like when you don't fumble and you can pass protect, you rocket up the boards. Also the fact that the whole story that's going to play really well when he goes through his interviews with the Combine and the Senior Bowl and everything else. And I'm sure that he's not playing in the Senior Bowl, but some of these guys that are seniors, they go to the Senior Bowl and they do the interviews because you can interview with the teams that night. That's never a bad thing, just to show your head and talk, and even if you're not playing. But it's going to be a really good story. He talks about how Quinshawn came in, split the load. Because like I said, when you do that, you basically give up any chance of being an All-American. You have any chance of getting a Buckeye tree, any chance of getting the Doak Walker, because there's going to be running backs out there that aren't going to do that, and they're going to put up crazy numbers. And you're going to be behind the Cam Scadaboos and the kid from Boise and whatever. But those guys didn't win the big ring. And frankly, those guys got a lot of wear and tear on their tires. So I think Trey's better than either of those guys. And I think that a lot of the intangibles are going to help him really skyrocket up the boards. So, Nevada, your thoughts on Trey only putting it on the turf twice in 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, look, you guys know what a big Trey Henderson fan. I mean, I've been in pitch battles with people for 4 years now about how Trey Henderson's soft. Trey Henderson's not as good as Mayan Williams. Trey Henderson's not as good as Chip train him. He should be behind Dallin Hayden. He doesn't have vision. I mean, I I like I said, I know people hate like, but I hate it, Nevada, when you bring up receipts, and I'm like, but I mean, like this stuff was like, I mean, it was every week. It'd be another thing about how Chips, he's quit on the team, he's soft, he doesn't know, and boy was he good, and boy was he tough, and on top of never fumbling and being an A+ pass protector, he's an A+ pass receiver and obviously a breakaway skill running back, and an A+ person. So I actually think he's a guy that's going to go higher in the NFL draft than people think. I really do. I think once he interviews with these people and they see what he's about, I can't believe somebody's not going to get really lucky with Trey Henderson. And you know, you'd wish that those people would line up and go, I was wrong. Man, I was wrong. But it never happens that way. They just kind of bury the things and just kind of move on to the next outrage. But Trey, man, you were great. Not just good, you were great, and yeah, not turning the ball over. That's a stunning statistic, but not surprising.
Yeah. Ravia Tube, thanks for the 5. What are we hearing about Will Hard's draft prospects? Really hope he's first round. He ended with the nation's highest QBR. Well, Mel Kiper has him listed as number 6 right now. Number 1 is Shador Sanders. 2 is Cam Ward. 3 is Jackson Dart. 4 is Jalen Milroe. 5 is Kyle McCord. 6 is Will Howard. And 7 is Quinn Ewers. 8, Dylan Gabriel. 9, Curtis Work. So it's funny that Will is actually at 6, and the 2 guys that made all Big Ten ahead of him are behind him now, which is what we've been saying the whole year. But there's a lot of jockeying that's going to go on as we go through the combine. These guys will mostly interview. I don't think any of our guys are going to work out at the combine. From what I've been hearing from them, they're going to train, and they're so far behind training right now that it's crazy. Their bodies have to heal. They've got to get ready to run a 40 and run. And, again, most of these guys, they're not going to start training till Monday. They're taking this week off, and then they got the celebration tomorrow at the shoe. So it's going to be, they're going to be rolling to, rolling out to Los Angeles or Arizona or Texas, Dallas, wherever. And, like I said, they're going to be joining, draft eligible players that have been training since the beginning of December. So, again, the winning the national championship is obviously the greatest thing in the world. From a draft prep standpoint, it really puts these guys behind the 8 ball, which again, it doesn't, running your 40 and your short shuttle and all that, it's not the be all end all, but it's more about getting their bodies right and healed. And there's a long season these guys just came off of. And so physical football, and now they got to go try to run. And I think that they're all skipping. I don't think any of them are playing in all-star games. I mean, they'd almost be crazy to play in the Senior Bowl at this point when they've played that many games. So yeah, I mean, Will Howard is at 6, and it's a long way from people saying that he wouldn't get drafted. I think if you're the 6th quarterback, generally you probably go in the second day, second, third roundish area. So I don't know. Like I said, I would much rather take Will Howard in the 2nd or 3rd round than take Shador at 1 or 2. Same with Cam Ward, because as we know, the Browns are sitting at 2. I don't know if either of those guys are the be all end all. I'd rather take Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter if I was the Browns and get a surefire Pro Bowl player as opposed to, a quarterback. I think Shador would be a disaster in Cleveland just because he seems like as soon as he'd get here, he'd be trying to get out. He'd be trying to figure out how long do I got to be here and when can I get out of Cleveland and go to Vegas or LA or Dallas or Miami or Atlanta, somewhere that isn't Cleveland. Will Howard, I think, would embrace being in Cleveland the same way he embraced being in Ohio. And I think that, when you look at what some of these guys have done in the NFL, if he went somewhere where there was good infrastructure, I mean, good infrastructure changes your life. Look at Sam Darnold. I mean, Sam Darnold goes to Minnesota and they've got Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson. And I mean, I said preseason that I thought JJ McCarthy could win Rookie of the Year because of how good the infrastructure is. And I just had the wrong guy. I mean, McCarthy got hurt and Sam Darnold turned into a guy who's going to make $45 million a year because of the Kevin O'Connell's his coach and the receivers being elite and the tight end being elite and and plus you're playing in a dome, which again, I know that's, softball or whatever, but I mean, when you're playing in a dome in Minnesota, you got that climate control. Plus you play Detroit in a dome. So you're playing in good weather for 10 of your games. So you're playing in climate control. So Justin Jefferson isn't playing in a blizzard or a monsoon, and you can really take advantage of him. Nevada, your thoughts on what you're hearing about Will Howard's QB draft prospects?
I'm hearing second round. Now, I think that could probably go up, but I'm hearing second round. Um, I will say for the record, though, and you guys can write this down and hold me to it, Milroe sucks. Okay. So any team that drafts Milroe over Will Howard is absolutely insane. Those other guys, I like Dart. I like Ewers. I like Shador. Um, you know, but Milroe, that makes absolutely no sense to me. And Cam Ward, like Cam Ward, that's fine. But Milroe, come on. And I'm going to call it right now: McCord to the Rams. Kyle McCord to the Rams. I think the Rams will take him in the second round. So I'm calling that right now. McCord to the Rams, second round.
There you go. Yeah, yeah, Jalen Milroe has just never impressed me unless they let him run. Like when he runs, he's a threat. But if he's got to be a straight thrower,
But he
tough.
stinks, dude. He stinks. That guy's he's terrible. And Milroe's terrible. Did you see him against Michigan? I mean, my gosh. I mean, like you're going to face defenses 1,000 times better than Michigan every week in the NFL, and he was just. I mean, he was so bad. I just think $1 million body, nickel head, and that's not a good combination in the NFL.
I agree. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if he goes first round. Like I said, I wouldn't be investing a lot in that. And again, there's always these guys that I think people get so amped up by the numbers, and it's like Anthony Richardson. Like Anthony Richardson is kind of like he was Jalen Milroe 2 years ago, and he went third, I think, in the draft. And he's a guy that wasn't great at Florida, but he ran a 4.3 and was 6'5" and 240 pounds, and so well, let's take a shot on him. And they already benched him for Joe Flacco. They put him back in, and he finished decent, but he go drive you nuts, man. I mean, those are the kind of guys that get GMs fired. When you take a guy like that in the first round, and then it's and I think Shador is like that too. I'm not on the Shador Sanders train at all. Especially if he goes to a bad team, gets the crap beat out of him. The way they called out the offensive line at Colorado and cried about everything. I'm like, well, that's not going to work in the league because you're going to go somewhere like the Giants and the Browns have two of the worst lines in the NFL, and it's going to be ugly for wherever he ends up. All right, Nevada, it's a good show. We can wrap this thing up. Any final thoughts?
Well, first question: are you going to the national championship celebration? I transferred the tickets to you. I sent you the parking passes. Are you going to the? Is Kirk Barton going to make an appearance there?
Yeah, I'll go. I've got some.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
It'll be.
Bring little Kirky with you. He'll have fun. He'll run around.
Fun. Yeah, it'll be kind of sad, honestly, because it's like the last time I see those guys on the field. It's amazing that it just. Like you say, man, these seasons go by fast. And this was, even the longest season in school history seems like it went by fast. So I don't know. It's kind of is what it is, man. Like it's
remember we talked about at the beginning of the year. We're like, remember we were saying, and we'd say that people, if you're a regular listener, we're like, guys, savor every game, savor every minute, because it's going to be over too fast. And then you're going to be like, wow, it ended too quick. And it wasn't just us like saying it, like, now you look at it, and you're exactly right, Kirk. It seemed like yesterday was the beginning of fall camp, and then today is like we just finished the longest season, but it blew by, and we're the freaking national champions on top of all that. So I'm not going to stop smiling for a very long time over this one. I'm glad you're going to the game, or not the game, the thing. That'll be fun. Let me know how that. I wish I could be there with you. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, you just you want to pay it's not a funeral, but you want to pay respects for some of these guys and what they've been through, from JT to Jack to Will Howard, and hell to Ryan Day. I mean, again, that dispatch article was chilling, talking about people getting his phone number and saying, hey, you should commit suicide like your dad did and stuff. Like people are sadistic, man. I mean, there are terrible people that are fans of this program, and I wish that we could get rid of all of them. The people that said that kind of that craziness, and I feel terrible for Ryan that he has to deal with that, and his family, Nina. And
well, that was a post, that was a tweet from a really prominent member of another website, and it's just like, I can't believe that you have that guy on your site. Like, that's a guy you have on your site. Like, dude, like
it's
you need
vile.
You need 30 cents a day that bad that you let that guy be on your site, man. You guys are disgusting, man.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name this. I'm not going to name the site Buckeye Huddle, but like that site, like how you can, like, you're that desperate for 30 cents that you let that guy post that stuff. But anyway,
it's vile. So it is what it is. All right, wrap this thing up. Any final, or excuse me, I already did that. Well, appreciate you guys as always. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys for being a part of this each and every night. A huge show. Again, another great audience tonight. Kind of easy when there's no football going on. So I'm glad you guys all tuned in tonight. I hope you guys are staying warm. I hope you guys have fun at the celebration tomorrow. Make sure you guys get out there. Make sure you're loud. You give these guys the ovation that they deserve. Again, I just appreciate you guys so very much for all that you guys do. So again, if you're doing something huge for us, give us a follow on Apple Podcasts. That is something that I've been kind of pushing around. And it's something that you guys can do that could really help us. So search Buckeye Scoop, completely free. Join our message board. Our message board has been awesome, and Nevada's been killing it, breaking who's coming, who's going. A lot of inside information on the team right now, and it all goes first on the website before we do anything on the podcast. So if you guys want to really know what's going on, join BuckeyeScoop.com. So with that being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Talk to you guys tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.